Good evening. We are here this evening to present information on Columbia Heights Public Schools 2023 operating levy and capital projects levy referendum. Part of our referendum and our levy questions are focused on strong schools and supportive communities. So my name is Zena Stenvik, Superintendent of Columbia Heights Public Schools.
And I'm Brian Hennekins, Director of Finance and Operations.
Our mission in Columbia Heights Public Schools, creating worlds of opportunity for each and every learner, all belong, all succeed. And of course, our core values of community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation, which are aligned with the Columbia Heights Public Schools Board of Education Equity Statement. I'm going to pass it over to Director Hennekins.
So the first slide we're looking at here is school funding. School funding is highly regulated by the state. The state really is setting our formula, setting the tax policy, and really setting the maximum authority to levy to the community. So the legislative body really of the state of Minnesota really does regulate how we receive our revenues and how much revenue we can receive. So we have a lot of different funds that we work with in the school district, and within each one of those funds, there's many buckets. It's general fund is our largest fund, but within that fund, there's a lot of buckets, and each bucket has a different set of strings associated with it. It's just an understanding that, again, we're highly regulated and the funding we received has a lot of strings associated with that and rules. We do receive most aid. Our revenue is mostly aid, and then our conversation this evening is mostly on levy. So a majority of our funding is a combination of that aid and levy. And these are our expenses by area. So we have our expenses, and you can see that a lot of questions come up about where does the money we receive go. This is last year's audited financial statement, and you can see that majority of our funding goes directly to instructional related and pupil support services. That's the biggest portions of where our funding goes. Here we can see the percentage increase. This year was a year where school districts received a higher percent than typical over the trend over the last decade. You can see that at the top in 2013 and 2014, we were receiving lower percentage increases. Prior to that, there was a couple years of zeros. And then we see a whole string of 2%. And again, this year we received 4%. And so this just gives you a historical trend of that percent increase on the general formula. So that's the amount per pupil, per student in our school that we receive. Now, as that has increased over time, this slide here will shows what that looks like if you consider inflationary adjustment. So in the dashed red line, that's our per pupil funding increase over time. And it accounts for the 4% increase in 2024 and the 2% in 2025. But you can see with inflation, if it had been adjusting with inflation, what the difference per pupil is. So that's a $1,356 per pupil difference. And that revenue equates to approximately 65 staff and teachers. So you can see that it's a major impact on schools where funding isn't keeping up with that inflation. In Columbia Heights Public Schools, our enrollment is rebounding from COVID. So we did see a drastic drop in our enrollment in our district during COVID. And this year we have a capacity at Valley View and at Columbia Heights High School. So we're close to open enrollment at those grades at the high school and at Valley View Elementary. So we have seen a great rebound in our enrollment in those two buildings particularly. This is a 5-year trend of our fund balance. So the fund balance is the cash reserves that the school district has on hand, and you can see this is a 5-year trend. That red line is our fund balance policy. Our fund balance policy's minimum of 6%. You can see that we're below that. When we had those drastic drops in enrollment, that meant drops in revenue, and we also saw increased expenses due to COVID, and so that trend just lines up with that loss of enrollment, and we're sitting at 4.2%. And this is what we've done over the years to try to adjust budget to revenues not keeping pace with expenses. So you can see we have a long trend of cutting in this district. Since 2015-16 school year, we've cut every single year, and that total is about $8.2 million of our operating budget over that time span.
I'll just add that the cuts that we have to make year over year are painful cuts, very challenging cuts, and we are to the point where we are so lean that it's hard to imagine where else we could possibly cut. We've been very good stewards of the funding and are to the point where we just don't have much more where else we could cut.
Cross subsidies. This is something that's been a large conversation in recent years, particularly a special education cross subsidy. We also have in this district a large EL learner cross subsidy. So what that cross subsidy is, if we receive $6 million to fund our special ed students, but our cost to actually educate those students is $12 million, then that cross subsidy is at $6 million that's unfunded. And so where does that $6 million come from? It comes from the general fund. And then in the EL, it's the same scenario. We have about a $1 million EL cross subsidy, and we have a $6 million special education cross subsidy.
We're really proud to serve all of our students and tend to all of the needs of our students, but we also recognize that it comes at a great cost to the general fund.
Transportation, districts across the state, across the country have seen challenges in transportation, staffing challenges, bus drivers, and with that, rising costs. So in FY22 or 2022, we saw an increase of $1 million in transportation costs in that year alone, and we continue to see those increases as our contract renewals come forward. And so we predict transportation costs far exceeding in the near future the inflationary rises that we're seeing in general. And so, again, when we have conversations about the inflationary adjustment on the cross subsidy or inflationary adjustment on the general formula, how important that is and how inflation is affecting the schools.
We've also seen throughout the pandemic years an increase in mental health needs. And we're pleased to report that based on the 2022 Minnesota Student Survey, that while across the state students reported the highest mental health needs since the beginning of the survey in 1989, here in Columbia Heights Public Schools, 94% of students reported feeling that their teacher cares about them. So here in Columbia Heights Public Schools, we really care about the health and well-being of the whole child, both physically and mentally and emotionally. So we were able to utilize some of the one-time federal funding for COVID relief to increase our mental health staff. The needs are still great, and of course that funding expires this school year.
So in this Columbia Heights Public Schools, we feel very strongly that we have a very caring community and a strong connection with our community and always have. And in the last 18 years, actually, our levy to the community, our per pupil levy, so what we receive per student directly levied or taxed to the community is $309. And the metro average is over $1,200 per pupil. So we were significantly below the metro average and significantly below the cap in Minnesota, which is just over $2,100. We were very thankful in 2014 that the community supported us in our capital projects levy for personalized learning and building maintenance. Really, at this point in time, we really need to focus on our operational costs and increasing what hasn't increased for the past 18 years in that per pupil. So this is a graph that just kind of shows what we look like compared to districts our size near the metro. And you can see that we're almost at the bottom at $309. You can see Orono at the top at this one at $2,085. And then this is their neighboring districts. And again, we're near the bottom. And you can see Brooklyn Center is the only one lower than us at $249 per pupil. They do have an inflationary adjustment on their operating levies, so that does increase each year, which really helps that school district in the year-over-year increases due to inflation and costs. We do know that districts above us, like St. Anthony and Richfield, are going out to increase their operating levies. And you can see Mounds View at the top of the near districts at 2012. So our financial situation, when we talk about that previous slide where we saw the 2% average cost increase on the state formula, that per pupil increase, but really our costs with inflationary adjustments over time is 4 to 10%. So really that 2% just really means that every year that we have to cut in our district. And so this shortfall in funding causes challenges for us. It causes challenges with cash flow. It brings our, that slide that showed our fund balance and where it currently is at, with a fund balance that low, because we get metered payments, then we have to cash flow borrow so that we can make our payments throughout the year. And of course, cash flow borrowing costs money as well. So it's important for us to address this, and this operating levy is incredibly important to supporting our staff and our students ultimately in the district. We do our best, as Superintendent Stemmick said earlier, to stretch every dollar that we have for our students. So again, without this additional funding, we'll have to continue to look at cutting programs, increasing class sizes, and relying on cash flow borrowing to manage operations of the district.
So on May 23rd last spring, the Columbia Heights Public Schools School Board unanimously passed a resolution asking voters to consider a revoke and replace of the existing operating levy and renewing the capital projects levy. So the operating levy, what does that go towards? It supports students in learning, and by funding teachers and staff, by providing classroom materials, student transportation, school operations. It's really in the name. It's the day-to-day operations of a school. The operating levy specifically will focus on supporting students through career and technical education, STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And we have that in grades pre-K through grade 12 here in our district. It will go to support and maintain our robust arts and music programs, and also our core curriculum, so reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? A common phrase is to distinguish between levies and bonds is levies are for learning and bonds are for building. So this is really focused on those levies for learning. Just as a repeat, our operating levy has not increased 1 penny in 18 years. So the current amount is $308.92 per student. And that was approved originally in 2005 and was a straight renewal in 2014, not an increase. How did we get to this point in terms of going out to the taxpayers in November on the ballot? Well, we polled the community. We launched two community surveys. The community surveys were done by a professional consulting firm who matched and mirrored the demographics of our school district to ensure accuracy in the polling. And based on those community responses, we are seeking to increase the per pupil amount to $827 per pupil, which would be subject to an annual increase at the rate of inflation. So as you saw in our previous slides, $827 per pupil is less than the cap, the Minnesota cap, and less still than many districts in the metro area and our surrounding districts. But we felt it was a modest ask. In 2023, taxes on an average priced home in the community is set at about $245,000. And previously, our taxes decreased by $4.25 per month because of an expiring bond that provided the building that we're sitting in this evening, which is the Family Center, and some other facility improvements. So that bond is paid off, and community members saw a decrease in taxes. So then looking ahead to 2024, taxes on that average priced home would be about $12 as a monthly increase. And so, you know, taking a look at the bond that was paid off, a decrease of $4.25, it all fleshes out to be about $7.75 per month based on those 2022 taxes. So typically an operating levy such as this is a 10-year operating levy. That's what this one would be. And the funds would be received by the school district starting with the 2024-25 school year. So the vote is happening in November of 2023, November 7th, but those funds don't come to the district until the following school year. So now we're going to shift over to talk about what's the capital projects levy. And what the district is seeking is a straight renewal of the capital projects levy, so not an increase. A capital projects levy, I would ask Director Hennekens to name a few of the items that are covered by or that the capital projects levy supports.
So the capital projects levy is a split between deferred maintenance projects, or so facility projects, and technology. So our personalized learning initiative in technology receives about 40%, and then the 60% goes to deferred maintenance projects that go beyond what LTFM, our long-term facility maintenance dollars that the district receives, can support. So things like separating buses from parents at drop off and pick up has capital projects definitely have supported. Brick tuck pointing, super exciting. And new boilers for a couple of our buildings for heating. So those types of projects are things that the capital projects levy supports to keep our facilities running smoothly.
So how and where to vote? In fact, early voting is now available, and that location is at the Anoka County Government Center. Because this is a special election, not every polling place is going to be open that normally is open. The polling places are only limited to 2 locations, which is Highland Elementary and Valley View Elementary. We do have information on our website specifically, so you can see if you typically vote at North Park Elementary, for example, our website will show you where you should be going. Or if you typically vote somewhere else, our website will show you which of the 2 places, Highland Elementary or Valley View Elementary, that you should come and vote at. And we also have sample ballots with the exact language of the questions and everything that you need to know on the Anoka County website. So again, early voting is available now. The election is November 7, 2023, coming up in a few weeks. There are just a whole lot of more information and frequently asked questions on our website. So we are lucky enough to have some audience members, and so with that, we'll field questions if anyone has any questions. All right, if anyone who's watching this recording has any questions prior to the election or at any time, please feel free to reach out, and all of our contact information is on our website. We're happy to field questions about this topic and other topics that may interest you. So with that, we will adjourn our recording.